Hello everyone, welcome to the Japanese Tea Workshop. My name is Simona and I'm the president of the Global Japanese Tea Association. Today, me and my colleague Anna will be talking about Japanese tea in Europe and Japan. Are you ready? Alright, let's get started. Okay, Japanese tea in Japan and Europe. Did you know that the first people to try Japanese tea were actually Europeans? Um, if you remember the East India Company, the company from the Netherlands that was bringing tea to Europe, in 1610 it reached the shores of Japan. Hirado, Nagasaki, that was actually the only open port in Japan at that time for international trading. And among various Japanese items, the ship in 1610 brought Japanese tea from Hirado, from Nagasaki, all the way to Europe. Since then, the tea has been in Europe, but recently it has been growing especially popular. And if we look at Japanese tea export trends to Europe within the last 15 years or so, this is the image we will have. So actually, in just 15 years, the amount of tea exported from Japan to Europe has nearly tripled, from around 250 tons to nearly 700 tons per year. And if we look closer, this change actually happened within the last 10 years, so even shorter span of time. If we look inside Europe, so where does actually Japanese tea go to? These would be the five top countries importing Japanese tea. So Germany by far is the number one, the largest importer, and as we know, Germany actually acts as a hub for tea imports in Europe, where afterwards the tea is distributed across the whole Europe. And if we see further down, we have France, England, the Netherlands, Italy. Slowly the amounts are getting smaller, but altogether these five countries account for about 85% of Japanese tea import into Europe. So the other countries form very small proportion. And if we look inside Europe, inside these countries, where does the tea end up at? So there are actually tea shops in Europe that are selling pure and often single origin tea. And among those teas, Japanese tea is also included. So I would like to share a few examples. This list is not conclusive. Of course, there are many more shops selling Japanese tea, but this perhaps is a good first look in some of these specialty tea shops that Japanese tea goes to. So among them, we have one of them is Postcard Teas in London. This tea shop was established in 2008, so quite a while ago, and their focus is on small tea farms, organic tea. So a lot of the tea comes from Japan, but they include other regions as well. And they often have visitors, either producers or even teaware artisans coming to introduce their products to the shop. So if you have a chance to stop by London, that's one of the places to check out for Japanese tea. And among other specialty tea shops in Europe that focus on pure and often single origin teas would be Neo Tea. It was established in 2007 and their focus is on authentic tea, so actually bringing teas from the origin. Our team had a chance to visit Nioti, and this is the picture from one of those visits a couple of years ago. It's also a very warm atmosphere and beautiful teas. And if we look in Germany, we have another interesting tea shop called Paper and Tea in Berlin. They started in 2011 and actually now have several stores, I think already five or six across Germany, mainly in Berlin, but in a few other cities as well. And as well, they focus on specialty tea, including Japanese tea. And we're among the first also to display the region from where the tea comes from, introducing it a little bit more, giving a bit more background about it. So these were some nice examples of where Japanese tea ends up at, but actually there are also some issues with Japanese tea in Europe. And I would like to talk about that a little bit as well. So, first thing is that often the teas that have Japanese names like sencha or matcha, they don't always come from Japan. So, if you look carefully and if you check the label, sometimes you can see that the origin of the tea is in China. So, sencha from China or matcha from China. And production costs seem to be lower over there, and it is cheaper to bring the tea to Europe, so the cost is lower. But along with that, the quality often is lower as well. So we can see in this specific example, this is a sencha made in China that we have found in Europe and France. And the leaves are often bigger, lighter, um, not same quality perhaps as sencha would be from Japan. So this is one of the issues. The teas that are thought to be Japanese and those that are sold in Europe don't always come from Japan. So watch the label, ask the shop assistant to know where the tea is made, to find out what is the region. Also, the quality of tea in Europe, Japanese tea in Europe, is not always the best. So this is again an example from a tea shop in Europe that showed us their matcha. And the color looks quite pale, no vibrancy, um, no strong greenness, pale and yellowish. And sadly, a lot of tea shops in Europe sell matcha like this. So high grade matcha, very rich in color, very umami, sweet in taste, rarely reaches Europe. Or you have to look at the beautiful shops that focus on specialty tea, that really pay attention to the quality of tea. And lastly, one of the bigger problems in Europe is also bad storage. So, green tea is quite fragile. A lot of Japanese tea is green. It is fragile and can easily be damaged if the storing conditions are not right. So, damage can come from higher temperatures, exposure to oxygen, exposure to light, moisture, and things like that. And here again is a picture we found in Europe of how Japanese tea, even high-grade Japanese tea such as gyokuro, was displayed in the shop in plastic containers in the room temperature where the light could easily pass through and the air could pass through. And this was a little bit of a sad moment for us to see how there are many places that don't really know how to handle green tea, Japanese green tea, high grade green tea. Nonetheless, there are some specialty shops that focus on Japanese tea, and they can deal with these troubles or these issues. But even more so, there are some courageous shops that's specialized specifically on Japanese tea. So I would also like to mention a couple of examples. Again, this is not conclusive, so just to give an idea. But of course, we could add more to the list. So one of the examples would be Jugetsudo, a shop in Paris, a tea room in Paris. Actually, it is a branch of a company found in Japan. It started in 1980s, and the branch in Paris was opened in 2008. And it's a small tea room with very few seats, but also a small tea shop behind. And there you can try authentic Japanese teas, high grade Japanese teas. The prices are not so low, so perhaps this is not an everyday adventure. A bit more special occasion could be. Additionally, we would like to mention Katsute 100 in London. It is a Japanese tea shop, a Japanese tea room, found in around 2016. And they also have a good selection of Japanese teas and some teaware as well. And there is a space to sit down and taste them. So it is not just to wander in for purchase, but possible to taste as well. And when we visited, they had some interesting combinations that would be quite unusual in Japan. For example, caramel hojicha or umeshi sobanche, creative teas like that. And one of the more, I guess, known examples of focusing on Japanese tea specifically is Keiko in Germany, in Diepholz. Um, their story started quite early, already in 1992. So among the first to really bring Japanese tea focus to Europe. They partnered with a tea producer from Kagoshima, and even today, their focus is all about Japanese tea. So the teas, the teaware. They have a tea shop in Diepholz where you can wander in and look around. And they are supplying many shops in Germany and around Europe. Um, so among these shops, some of them are also taking a step into some interesting initiatives or interesting projects. So actually, there are a few places in Europe that already have matcha stone mill grinders. And here I wanted to show two examples. So one is from a shop we already mentioned, Postcard Teas. They have a stone mill there for freshly ground matcha, but also for various other teas. They have been grinding oolongs and black teas as well. And additionally, there is a shop we just mentioned before, Keiko, that also has matcha, a few matcha stone mills where they grind their own matcha as well. And no surprise is also a look and a try with Japanese tea infused desserts. So there are a few cafes, patisserie shops in Europe that have been incorporating Japanese tea in their creations. So the two examples I have here, one is Patisserie Tomo in Paris, and the other is Cafe Commune in Berlin. And both of them are really passionate about Japanese tea, really into Japanese tea and tea culture, and have been offering and creating these amazing looking and tasting desserts. And this trend has also been spreading through Europe recently a bit more to incorporate tea. In Japan, this has been going already for decades, but Europe is now discovering the green tea tasting desserts. And in Japan, tea has been intrinsic to the whole culture for a very long time. So if we see even today, tea is often a welcome drink, both at home and in the restaurants, especially in the tea producing regions. If someone enters a restaurant, they will often be greeted with a cup of tea served for free. And in those cases, you find hojicha or genmaicha, more casualties, but still, it is a nice and warm way to welcome guests in the restaurants and at home. And the history of Japanese tea is actually quite long. The tea production here has been going on for over 800 years. There are various sources that give different dates, but we rely on a written book by Esai Kisa Hojaki that basically mentioned that Esai in this picture over here on the right went to study to China about Buddhism and on his way back brought tea seeds to Japan that he planted and sent out to be planted in three different locations. And from there on, the tea cultivation took off and spread throughout Japan. And if we look the relationship between Japan and the world, we already mentioned that the first tea exported from Japan went to Europe in 1610. And actually, just after Meiji Restoration in 1868, around that period of time, Japanese tea was the second largest exported item after silk. So about 20% of all Japanese export was tea at that time. Um, and that is quite interesting to note and surprising to note because now only 5% of Japanese tea produced in Japan is exported, so that the trends changed dramatically. But at that time, Japanese tea was leaving Japan in a large numbers. And Japanese tea production grew steadily and gradually and reached the peak in around late 70s when the production was about 100,000 tons of tea per year. However, in more recent times, the production has been declining. So here we can see the graph of about the last 20 years, 18, 20 years. We see that there was another rise up in 2004, 2005, but since then it has been declining quite steadily. And if we compare those middle 2000s with the 2018 when we had the last data, the production shrank nearly by 15%, and it has been decreasing since. Um, And if we look inside Japan, so what is happening with Japanese tea? Where is it going? There are some long-lasting shops in Japan that have been selling and serving tea. So I would like to mention two that have possibly the longest history. One of which would be Marukyu Koyama. It is a famous tea shop that has its origins in tea farming, and it started in around 1704. Today, they are also a large tea producer, especially known for matcha, high-grade matcha. But they also have a tea room in Kyoto where people can visit and try the teas, try matcha, but also other high-grade Japanese teas. Um, and additionally, there is Ippodo tea as well in Kyoto that has started in 1717. So again, counting over 300 years of history. And there people can visit and taste teas from Kyoto and around. So high grade teas like gyokuro, sencha, matcha, a very authentic experience too. These are the long-lasting shops, but now there are also a few trendy cafes opening in the last few years that are also focusing on Japanese tea. So I would like to share a few examples from a few different cities in Japan. So one would be Sakurai Tea in Tokyo that has started in 2016. And it is a small space to try tea, but actually it is not just to have a single cup of tea. They have designed the whole tea experience that lasts about an hour long, where the guests are taken through various Japanese teas and some interesting and unique ways of serving them and enjoying them. It has been really popular with foreign visitors as well, and this is a picture from the last visit there. Another interesting shop to mention would be Chagama in Shizuoka. So it was started actually by a tea wholesaler that has quite a long history in the region. It opened the doors in 2014 and has actually two different sections, one including tea and teaware, but also a bar. And interestingly, they combine tea and alcohol to create unique tea cocktails for those who visit in the evening. So quite an interesting place and a new take on Japanese tea. And the newest entrant into this trendy world of Japanese tea is Yugen in Kyoto. So this is a very small space in an old traditional building. It is more of a tea bar because there are only two or three seats. So mostly people would be standing or getting tea to take on the go. But their focus is on loose leaf tea, again, single origin, directly from the tea farm. So all of these examples, they connect with the tea farmers and serve tea directly from the farm. So that is an interesting place to visit too. So if we look what Japanese tea is like, or the composition of all the tea produced in Japan, we have a picture like this that regular sencha. So basically the most common Japanese loose leaf tea, higher grade loose leaf tea. Uh, Takes 56% of the tea produced in Japan. And if we combine it together with the shaded high-grade teas like Gyokuro or Kabuse Sencha, it makes nearly two-thirds of Japanese tea. And a bancha, a little bit lower grade Japanese tea, basically the tea that is harvested after the higher grade teas have been harvested. This tea makes about 29% of all tea production in Japan. And lastly, oh, so sencha, I'm sorry, it should be matcha. Matcha is very known across Japan and even more, I would say, around the world nowadays as a representative of Japanese tea. But actually, the production of matcha is very, very small. So just about 4% of all Japanese tea is matcha. So this is the situation we have in Japan with the tea production. But Japanese tea in Japan has been having some challenges. It actually has been seen as old-fashioned by younger generations. The challenges come from other beverages that have become more trendy or seen as more trendy and fashionable, such as fizzy drinks or coffee. And teas also, high grade loose leaf teas are also challenged by bottle teas. So, tea that is prepared and ready to grab on the go. This is, of course, very convenient, and the younger generation does like it. So, it's actually the sales of bottle tea have been going up. But the problem is that for bottle tea, the tea leaves chosen are usually lower in grade. So you will rarely meet bottle tea that has been made from high grade teas. So that also kind of pushes the tea production towards lower grades, more simpler, less sophisticated teas in Japan. So this is the current situation. This is what the landscape looks like both in Europe and in Japan. And in this situation, in 2019, our association, the Global Japanese Tea Association, was established to bring the new growth into Japanese tea world through global collaboration. So as we see, Japanese tea struggles inside Japan. The production has been going down. The interest in Japanese tea has been going down. But abroad, it is quite the opposite story. The interest, especially in Europe, has been on the rise and has doubled within the last 10 years. Um, so we started this organization to basically look at these challenges and see how we can overcome some of them or how we can address them. And it is based on three pillars. One is information, so sharing information about Japanese tea, making it more accessible. Often the information is available in Japanese, but in other languages, English, and all the others is much less accessible. So we are working on making it more accessible in English and other languages. Education, of course, some teaching about Japanese tea, giving people a chance to get to know Japanese tea better, to feel more familiar and accustomed with it. And lastly, community. So building the tea community where we can connect with each other, learn from one another, collaborate and grow together. So we have been holding courses both in Japan and abroad, such as Japanese Tea Foundation course. That is the base course, 1 day course that takes through the main kinds of teas, the tea history, the production of Japanese tea. It has been held in a few locations. It started in Europe actually in 2019 in Spain and Belgium. And this year we held it in Japan as well as the Netherlands. But the pandemic has, of course, created some challenges for us to continue. So it has gone online. Now we are offering this course online. So if you are interested, you are welcome to join. The intermediate course is also 1 day course, so it's one step higher than foundation. It takes for some more interesting, unique teas, as well as shares more background information about Japanese tea. So, what is the situation around Japanese tea? A little bit of what we talked today, but also what is the culture like, how it has developed, and what is the surrounding of Japanese tea. And lastly is the master course. So this is a very intense 2 week program inside the tea region with students going to the field, speaking and processing tea themselves, meeting tea professionals, getting to know the tea culture from the first person through their own experience and becoming more familiar and able to talk about it. And we hold various events both in Japan and abroad. We have been traveling to Europe for many years. This year, again, is going to be an exception. And because most in person events have become quite difficult, we switched online again. And one of our main events this year is Meet the Tea Farmer event. basically we create this opportunity for both tea farmers to introduce their teas, but tea lovers and tea professionals around the world to meet the tea farmer directly, to taste their tea during the session, because we send the tea ahead of time, so everyone can taste and experience Japanese tea directly from the farmer. So we have been holding these monthly, and if you would like to join our next one, we would be very happy to have you. And lastly is our membership program. So this is what our community is based on, and this is what empowers us with all of these activities, courses, events. There are several levels within the program. The most basic, the easiest to join is the Tea Buddy, that is free for anyone, and you connect with us, you get our news, you get to know about the news information about Japanese tea as it happens. And one step higher is the tea fellow, so someone who wants to learn about Japanese tea more proactively and wants to be involved in the community, wants to basically connect with each other and learn from one another. So we have the dedicated community as well as other membership tools like membership directory to get to know where the others are coming from, which countries, which companies or organizations they work in. As well as the photo library about Japanese tea that gives resources for the projects related on Japanese tea, such as tea production, cultivation and processing, the culture, the serving of tea, the different kinds, and so on, and a few additional tools. And lastly is the tea catalyst, so the person who is the mostly engaged in Japanese tea at the highest level, who wants to spread the love for tea, who wants to teach about tea and join us in this endeavor to connect the outside world and inside the world in Japan around Japanese tea. So this level actually has the screening step where we ask to fill out the questionnaire and evaluate and invite the candidates to join. So yeah, so this is us. So please join us, and together let's energize Japanese tea world. Let's bring new ideas, new initiatives, and let's keep it going. So this is all today about Japanese tea in Japan and Europe. If you would like to learn more about Japanese tea from various other topics, please get in touch. And thank you so much for listening to us today. Thank you everyone for listening to this presentation, to this workshop. My colleague Anna will take over from here to answer any of your questions. Let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Have Anna from Global Japanese Tea, and then she will answer any questions that you have about Global Japanese Tea or Japanese tea. And please ask any question you have in the chat. And before we cover any questions, Anna, could you introduce yourself to us so we can get to know you a little bit?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'm co-founder of the Global Japanese Tea Association. Because of time difference with Japan, I'm going to be the one answering to your questions. I'm based in Spain. Please feel free to ask anything, any curiosity you have on the presentation that Simona did, or any other doubt you have on Japanese tea.
We're based in Madrid.
Yes.
Welcoming in. And Mary, I don't know why I'm a bit nervous right now. Like,
I'm more nervous. The one that have to reply to the questions.
Mary asked, how do I find out more information or to join these meets?
About Global Japanese Tea Association, I guess. You
Yes.
can find all the information on the website. I think, oh, Martin already shared it, but I'll write it down anyway. There's all the information in English there and in some other languages. Otherwise, feel free to email us for any questions. I'll write down the email address as well.
Thank you for sharing. Tomo asked, how are Japanese teas accepted in Spain?
There's still not much, I think, knowledge about Japanese tea in Spain. In general, tea in Spain is not a product that is widely consumed. So Japanese tea is a very little market yet. In general, from our experience, people like it when they try it, when they come to events or workshops, but it's something quite new. It's getting little by little more known. Maybe thank you to the matcha trend that it's nowadays a bit everywhere. So people hear about matcha and get maybe closer to other Japanese teas.
Oh, is matcha becoming more and more popular in Spain?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
we had a speaker from Germany, Suzanne, talked about tea cocktails and also Japanese tea in Germany, and she mentioned that matcha's popular, but loose leaves tends to be more popular. Is it the case in Spain as well? Do you find matcha's popular and getting more? People are seeking more, but still, if you compare between loose leaf and powdered, do people prefer loose
I think
rather than powder?
The consumption is still greater of loose leaf tea, but people are getting very curious about matcha because it's a powder, because all the health benefits, and so more and more people are getting interested in powder tea. But still, loose leaf tea is much more consumed than the matcha.
Do you like more matcha than loose leaves?
Personally, I prefer loose leaf tea. But yeah, for me, matcha is something for, I wouldn't really say special occasions, but for some specific times when I really feel in the mood, or of course, a ceremony, or to share with other people, or if one day I suddenly feel, oh, I really want some matcha. But every day I usually drink loose leaf tea more than matcha.
Which one do you drink? All kinds?
All kinds. Depends on the moment. At the moment, I'm drinking some hojicha.
I'm currently drinking Japanese black tea. It's Samidori cultivar.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Yesterday I drank with mint, and today I'm just drinking as single origin. It's yum.
That's nice. I think I saw earlier a question about machine harvest and process in Japan. If I may answer.
Yeah, sure.
The question was, I think, how big is the percentage of hand-picked and hand-processed in Japan? I wouldn't know the exact percentage, but it's definitely a very tiny part. The wide part of tea produced in Japan is usually machine-picked and machine-produced. That is because the labor cost is higher in Japan than other countries, for example, India or China. So to produce a kilo of tea would be time-consuming and quite expensive. And also, the machinery for processing tea in Japan got developed quite well. So the quality can be quite high, even if it's machine-picked and machine processed. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. And Tomo asked the question, what led you the world of Japanese teas?
Actually, I did an internship in Japan 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. By chance, I met Simona and Matsumoto-san, the other two co-founders of the Global Japanese Tea Association. They were touring around Europe with Kyoto Obubu tea farms. And I don't know if any of you know about Obubu tea. They offer internships at their tea farm. So I thought, oh, wow, that's nice. I liked tea at the time, but I wasn't that much into it yet. And I've always loved Asia, and I thought, that sounds like an awesome experience. Go to a rural little small town in Japan and spend some months knowing how tea is processed and produced. And so there I went, and I started to get more and more passion. And I became friends with them, and we kept on talking during the years about doing something more for Japanese tea to spread more the knowledge around the world of Japanese tea. So here I am.
Is the internship program started a long time ago? Because it sounds like many people went through the internship.
Yes. I think it went on for, I'm not sure now, maybe 12 years, maybe. They had already more than 120 interns. So for quite some time.
Yeah, that's quite some time. Are there Facebook group for Global Japanese Tea Association, or it's mainly based on the website?
We also have a Facebook group and an Instagram. I can share the link, or I can share the link after the Q&A.
Yeah, please share the link. And if anyone wants to follow more and learn more about Global Japanese Tea Association, we also have the link that we listed out on our website, or you can also find it directly on the Facebook group or Instagram. And we will also share the information through our newsletter after the festival.
I think I'm trying to share the link.
Do you believe the prices of tea are going to go up next year? Or is production of tea down in Japan?
Unfortunately, in general, the production, it is slowing down in Japan. It is a problem really, because the age of the farmers is the average age of the farmers is getting older. And young generations are not very interested in taking up tea agriculture. So the production is already going down. Plus, this year with COVID, it didn't help at all.
No.
All the well, not all, but big part of exports at the beginning were going down, and the internal demand also went down because, of course, all shops and hotels and restaurants and cafes had less work, so the tea consequently also was demanded less. Unfortunately, the prices went down, and we know of many tea farmers already in age that after this they decided to give up. So that's a bit sad. Let's see how things go, and let's hope next year goes better. And please drink Japanese tea.
Yeah, sure.
That's what people can do to help.
Yes. As last question, could you share your upcoming plan or program?
At the moment, we're trying to do as many activities as possible online. We had quite a few activities planned in person, either in Europe or in Japan, but of course with COVID, everything stopped. So at the moment, we're doing Japanese Tea Foundation courses online. That is a course that lasts 4 classes of 2 hours, and it gives the basics to the world of Japanese tea. And then we are doing events for the members of the association, like online tea parties and chats and blogs. And then for everyone, we have a newsletter. And an interesting activity we're doing is called Meet the Farmer. It's an event that is going on once per month. And in this event, you can meet a tea farmer. And if you sign up, you would get 2 teas from him and participate at the talk, ask any questions you have while we drink together the teas. So it's a nice experience, especially now that we cannot travel to Japan.
You can be done virtually too. Thanks for sharing and answering the questions.
Thank you.
To hear more from you and Global Japanese Tea Association. Thanks.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for organizing this festival.
Oh, thank you for joining and being part of and helping us to make this happen. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers. Cheers.